Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH-FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. We have two gentlemen here for the first segment today who are making New Haven tick and doing their best to keep democracy alive in what is often seen as a one-party city. Say good morning to John Carlson, Eric Mastriani. They're running for state legislative office in New Haven this year. Welcome to Dateline New Haven, gentlemen, and thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us, Paul. Appreciate it.
Yes, Paul. Thank you for having us.
And John, your voice carries great, but if you can move the mic up to be close to you, we'll hear you better still. But okay, so John, you're running for a state senate seat in the 10th district, and that's Marty Looney, right? His seat.
No, I'm running against Gary Winfield.
Oh, you're running against Gary. See, I was so
10.
unprepared. Okay, Gary Winfield's been in the legislature since 2008, winning in 2008. He moved from the state rep to state senate. So that's a pretty wide-ranging district. You got New Hallville.
New Haven, western side of New Haven, and West Haven. Half of West Haven.
Oh, wow. Half. So how much? Like, what percentage of the district is West Haven?
Oh, probably haven't looked at the solid numbers, but I guess about 40%.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that much.
It's a big chunk.
Wow. And so what made you decide? Now, you've both run for office before. You've kind of valiantly kept the flag to give voters a choice in a city where there are many, many more Democrats than Republicans. What made you choose to run for this seat, John? You've run for Alder before. You ran for mayor last year. You did a good job on that.
Well, my main goal really is to bring democracy back to the city. Mm-hmm. We don't have democracy in the city. One-party rule for 50 years. It's been horrible. Winfield's record speaks for itself. He's raised taxes with Lamont and Malloy every single time he votes the party side instead of doing what's right for New Haven and West Haven. So I can't give him a free pass. Decided the seat was open. We didn't have a candidate. And the best thing for democracy in New Haven is to have a quality candidate, which I believe I am.
So, John, you ran a very hard-fought run for mayor. You had the numbers against you, but I think everybody agreed whether or not they voted for you, they acquitted yourself well in that debate and the campaign. What did you take from that campaign? You ran for mayor with a great statistical disadvantage. You lost by a lot. But in numbers, what did you take from that campaign that you're bringing to this campaign?
Well, there were a lot of positives. I was the first Republican candidate to qualify for the grant in New Haven.
Meaning public financing.
Public financing grant in New Haven. So that was a positive. We brought a lot of issues to light, and people today can go back and watch the debate. It's online, and they can find out more about me on Facebook at Carlson for Senate 10 and online at carlsonforsenate10.com.
And John, what did you learn about the way you campaign? I remember you did have a pretty active social media presence. I remember you knocked on some doors. What did you find worked well and what didn't work as well in terms of how you're going to go out this time and get your message to voters?
The best way is door to door, but obviously in a mayoral race you have a whole city to cover.
And you got half the city combined.
Yeah.
I mean, worth.
And one person can't do it. But we did have some growth within the party based on that campaign. So we'll have more volunteers. We'll have more people door knocking. And we'll be bringing our message directly to the doors of the voters.
And is the message, you talked about the need for two-party system. It's actually been more than 50 years of one-party rule. I think 51 was the last time the Republicans won a mayoral contest in New Haven, which is getting on 70 years now. Wow.
And it's been about 10 since we had a Republican Alder.
Right. And a state representative or senator was Chris DePino. Was he the last one on the East Shore in the 90s?
Yes.
Okay.
And Congress, I believe, was Donardis in 1980. 1980
for one term. So in addition to saying we need two parties in competition and that one-party rule hasn't served the city well, Juliana Jones says, not my door. You didn't wear masks when door knocking 2 years ago. That's one listener, Julia. What about on specific issues? What is the distillation of your message? Like, hi, I'm open my door. You're John Carlson running for state senate against Gary Winfield. What issues are you hammering home?
Inflation, price of gas, cost of living. It's all been brought to us by Democrat rule. And the police accountability bill is flawed. It's made life more dangerous for the citizens of Connecticut. So we need to revisit that and make changes to it.
Okay, so now to what extent is inflation the fault of Democrats? We've had inflation under the first George Bush. We had inflation under Reagan.
Build back better is more like build backwards. Biden has single-handedly destroyed one of the best economies we've had in decades in 18 months. So I hate to see what it's going to be like in another year or two.
And how does that have to do with
interest rates are going to go up. The housing market's going to crash. We have a governor who, unlike his opponent, made money off the pandemic. His wife made money instead of giving to people and protecting people. Like Bob Stefanowski and his wife gave out tons of supplies to people that were in need out of their own pocket. And Lamont family made money off the pandemic.
And what about in terms of state legislator? What would you do differently to tackle those issues?
Well, we have to reduce taxes. We can't pass any new taxes. We have a lot of new revenue coming in. We've legalized gambling. We've legalized marijuana. We have one of the highest gas taxes in the nation, which is temporarily suspended. That is supposed to go directly toward road repair.
Don't forget the diesel tax.
And it doesn't. So those costs, as Eric mentioned, truck drivers, supplies coming into the state, it gets added on to the cost of goods and services for the consumer. So when Democrats pass these taxes, they are directly contributing to the cost of goods and services for the average person in Connecticut.
We're talking to John Carlson in a moment. Eric Mastriani, two candidates for state legislative office here at Dateline, New Haven, WNHH-FM. We'll get to, thanks, folks, for giving the questions. You can imagine questions. We'll get to those in a little while. I want to first hear from the candidates about why they're running and who they are. Oh, before we go on to Eric, John, tell us the little brief bio. You're a school teacher. You're the Republican town chair. You lived your whole life in New Haven. You live in the
I lived
in
a couple years in West Haven when I was married, but I was born and raised in the Hill. My father was a World War II and Korea Navy vet who grew up in West Haven and New Haven. He retired from New Haven Public Schools as a custodian from Prince Street School. So a lot of people should know him, Warren Carlson. And my mother was born and raised in the Hill, Washington Avenue, Halleck Avenue. Teresa Lowy Carlson. She was a lunch lady at Kimberly School. She was very involved in St. Peter's and Sacred Heart churches when she was alive.
I'm sorry, which school was she lunch lady?
Kimberly School, which is now has been torn down and replaced with Betsy Ross on the old St. Peter's.
So it's interesting. You grew up in a family who worked for the public schools. Then you became a teacher. Is that connected?
No, not really. My father was a custodian, and I'm a teacher. So I'm the youngest of 6 kids. I was the first to graduate from a 4-year college. My older sister is a nurse, which was a 2-year program. My oldest brother worked on the railroad and retired. My other brother worked as sergeants on Long Wharf for 42 years. He just retired. And
he's one of the last people not replaced by a robot. I've walked in there. It's eerie. You kind of feel like you're in a 3D science fiction movie when those things start working. You look around, who are you going to talk to? And it's these machines. You know?
And then 2 of my brothers are deceased. They both passed away at the age of 43.
Wow.
A couple years apart. So I became a public school teacher about 22 years ago, actually. I enjoy it. I work with the kids in Bridgeport. We have outstanding results. It's a great job if you love kids, you love children. And I've been in New Haven for over 50 years.
And you're active in neighborhood organizations,
I'm active
City
in the
Point,
neighborhood.
right?
I co-founded Hill Regional Baseball, which was put on hold for the pandemic. We're hoping to bring that back in the fall, possibly. Mm-hmm. I get involved in a lot of neighborhood activities and the community, food pantries.
All right, and Eric Mastriani, gangs, you're also a familiar face in election time. You're a Republican candidate in the 96th district for state representative.
Yes,
and
sir.
as Roland Lamar, you've run against him before.
Yes, sir, twice.
So we're talking Fairhaven, Worcester Square, East Rock.
Cedar Hill Avenue area.
Uh-huh. And so how many times you run against Roland?
This will be my 3rd time.
3rd time. So what have you learned from running against him that's going to affect how you're running this time?
What I've learned is that you have to get more name recognition. Actually, the people I've talked to by knocking on doors while campaigning didn't even know who he was and what he looked like. He's not out in the neighborhoods. I, on the other hand, is visible in the public. I would be the representative and their voice in Hartford. I would come down here in New Haven. I would open resource centers and be their guide and resource. Like at the present, I offer jobs to people, recruit for jobs. I do a lot of charity work. since 1998 when I came back from the military.
What did you do in the military, Eric?
I was a Navy Seabee, construction battalion, equipment operator, and also a chef.
And so what do you do for a living now, Eric?
I am the operations trainer for Colony Hardware, a major construction supply corporation. I'm also a small business owner of Alpha Recon Protective Service, LLC,
What is that?
armed security company.
What does that mean? We hire you to like shoot people come in our house, or
No, sir. I guard candidates.
really? You go out and guard candidates?
Yes.
Like you personally?
Yes.
So what candidates have you guarded?
John Carlson.
Briefly, I was working to get hired by Margaret Stryker when she ran, but it didn't pan out because I was also a candidate, and I felt that it was conflict of interest. I have several businesses here in New Haven that are looking to gain my services to watch their place, check in on it. Basically, who I am, I'm Eric Michael Mastriani Sr. I was born on Foxon Street in New Haven, raised in Fairhaven, Wolcott Street, Clay Street. And I did my freshman year at Hampden High, went to North Carolina, finished out in Gastonia, North Carolina, Hunter Huss, went on to the military. I did 22 years total, both active and reserve time. I was the training officer for the Sea Cadet program for 3 years at Fort Hale. My name is on the War Memorial in Hampden.
Memorial?
Yes, sir.
I thought that's for people who died.
I did for this country. January 1st, 2008, 10 p.m., rushed to the hospital due to my military service, flatlined on the table, was put on life support, medical-induced coma, while they did 9 reconstructive surgeries.
Whoa.
Yes, sir.
So then how did you get hurt? What happened?
We were on a mission, and I was going down what we call a ladder on the ship. That's where it started from. Then I wasn't too far from something that occurred. I also carried a very heavy guy out of there. Couldn't leave my brother behind, which in turn ruptured my intestines. Found out I had 3 slits. Over time, it leaked out, and I was septic.
Oh, my goodness. Where was that, where that occurred?
It was over in the Pacific in over Iraq.
So you were in Iraq?
Yes, sir.
Oh, my
I'm
goodness.
Persian Gulf War, Desert Storm, Desert Shield veteran.
So this is an ignorant question. I'm sorry
Sure.
about this. If you almost die and they bring you back, you get your name on a memorial before you die.
It depends. It depends. Like Big Navy and Mayor Scott at the time of Hampden and Commander Adler heard my story. They said, let's get your records, check your records, and see if you qualify. Everything panned out, of course. I told the truth. And they said, you're going up. And they put me up on the memorial.
Seg Mastriani, what's your message on the doors?
My message...
You talked about citizen service, but I'm guessing there's more to it. Why they say, well, Roland Lamar's been there a long time. He's been there for, what, over 10 years?
He's 2009.
So, and they say, so Eric, what are you going to do different?
I will be visible. During the pandemic, he was nowhere around. I was talking with people and trying to get people to stay in their homes. I was gathering supplies for the elderly at Bella Vista when they couldn't get toilet paper, hand sanitizer, rubbing alcohol, toilet tissue, everything. I was making care packages and delivering them.
So I hear you and John both talking about community service. You're both people rooted in New Haven, from New Haven. You like to help people one-on-one. John talked about taxes, inflation. What are the issues where you're going to set yourself apart? Like, for instance, Roland Lamar has had a very visible role on transportation. He's moving the fleet to electric, the buses. Tell me about that.
Okay, so he is credited.
He's also proposed tolls several times as head of transportation.
And there's also a mileage tax from the house work back to home, which shouldn't be. Connecticut's taxed enough. We're losing too many people. We're not keeping enough. We're not gaining enough. Small businesses are leaving. Big businesses are leaving. We have to make it more business friendly. I'm even for, if we can, about a year and a half to freeze the small business tax so they could gain more inventory, hire more people, which will in turn more revenue for us when it comes back.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing that's been interesting is people have criticized the state because they have such a big rainy day fund. And it's Republicans who are saying draw down on it to give more aid to people through lower taxes or suspension of gas tax. I was telling Bob Stefanowski that's kind of a flip, however I remember politics in Connecticut. It used to be the Republicans who said be conservative with finances, don't spend down the rainy day fund. And Wall Street's been happy with Connecticut. Our bond rating's gone up in the last couple of years because of the extra money we put in the rainy day fund, as well as toward paying down the pensions because we got a bounty of federal money. What do you guys say to that you guys have switched sides? Whereas the Democrats who say, let's be conservative about financing.
A rainy day fund is just for that, a rainy day. So you don't just keep hoarding it forever. When it's raining, you need to use it.
Is it raining?
Pensions, it's been raining in Connecticut for a decade. Pensions in Connecticut, teacher pensions, state worker pensions, they're all underfunded. We are in a fiscal disaster in Connecticut.
So one reason our bond rating improved is that we did put more money into the pensions to try to pay.
But they're still not fully funded.
Right.
So we need to fully fund people's pensions. We need to stop increasing taxes. We're losing companies. Another company just moved out of state a few weeks ago. As you know, you've been in New Haven a long time. I grew up in New Haven. There were factories everywhere. There were factories now. A lot of them they're making them into apartments and condos and other things. We don't have any manufacturing jobs. Now, a lot of people will say a lot of manufacturing jobs have moved out of the country. So we still need to attract different jobs and keep the manufacturing we have.
So when you guys hit the doors, I'm assuming...
Well, I talked to the owner of Jeff Craft over near Torrington, came out of Pennsylvania, wants to stay in Connecticut, big facility, big company, a lot of jobs brought to Connecticut. But he said, Eric, I might not stay because it's not business friendly with the high taxes. I can't afford to get materials. I can't afford to hire people. And like Roland Lamar, he, look at his record. He voted for every single tax there is.
Okay, so John Carlson, Eric Bastiano running for state senator and state representative from the Republican Party, trying to give a two-party system in New Haven. So I'll be getting questions about, so you've talked about the stuff Republicans want to hear on the doors. People are very upset about inflation. They're very upset about taxes. They're very upset about gas prices.
Well, not just Republicans.
Voters. I mean, the average person.
Yeah.
You're also hearing from our listener, and what you're hearing on the street, too, I'm sure, is about the Republican Party being seen nationally as becoming extreme on abortion and guns and the Supreme Court decisions. Any thoughts on those? Because that's what the Democrats are trying to inject into this campaign.
Well, Paul, as you know, all politics are local. So no matter where you stand on abortion, it's been codified in Connecticut law, so there's nothing really anybody can do for or against abortion. The Supreme Court ruling put it back in the hands of the states, and Connecticut is really, they handled it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 1990, I believe. So abortion really
still the argument that's being raised about whether a teenager under 16 should have to get parental consent, right? That's one.
Well, I firmly believe a 16-year-old, 16 and under, should have to get parental consent, 100%.
And then the argument you hear from the other is that they might be getting an abortion because they were raped by a stepfather.
And in that case, the stepfather should be arrested and imprisoned.
See, that's my stance. If it's incest or rape, and if it puts the mother at risk, then she should get one and save her life.
Mm-hmm. But you're saying, John, not an exception, just arrest the stepfather.
Oh yeah, for rape.
No. So, well, to sum it up briefly, Paul, my daughters say my views fall into pro-choice. But I want everyone to understand, abortion, you are killing a human life. But as a freedom-loving Republican, I believe in people having choices for what they want to do with their lives.
Government shouldn't be telling them it's their choice.
So that issue's been settled in Connecticut. It's not something I'm running on or against. Connecticut has 100 problems, and abortion isn't one of them.
Eric, what were you saying on that?
Oh no, I said it. Government should stay out of their lives. It's their choice.
All right. And you listen to Dateline New Haven. We got a few more minutes here. Tell me about how we should deal in New Haven with slumlords. You both live in parts of town where small number of companies have gotten tens of millions of dollars a year in outside investment to buy up housing that is often supported by Section 8 rental subsidies. This is some of the worst housing in the city. When we go to housing court, these people are being dragged into housing court, arrested for refusing to keep their properties up to code. You have any thoughts about what to do about that?
My
Landlords should be fined. They should maintain their properties, especially slumlords from out of states, from other states.
That's right. Your
with
neighborhood
LC
nearby, you had that guy who had all those right over from the West Haven line in the hill, had 40 people from, was it India, living all on top of each other illegally in some house? Students at UNH.
I didn't see that.
They raided them. LCI raided
but
them. But
we've had houses on my street that have been problems with the landlord. Sometimes tenants are problems, but a lot of times landlords are the problems. And as a city, we have LCI. We have
Mandy.
We have people in place to stop slumlords. So when we have a problem slumlord, we need to find them. We need to make them do the right thing, clean their properties, and maintain their properties.
My thing is, why are all these entities coming from other states and buying up our property when I feel that we're not even getting tax revenue from it? They run down the place. They put people in danger by not fixing heat and all that. That's why all these fires happen, because they try to subsidize to stay warm. Yeah, they do run them down, decrease value around you.
But they have a legal right to buy them. John talked about using LCI to enforce the code.
I believe that if we can, let them lease the land and make money off of it as a state.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, Paul, we have to do a lot more for Connecticut residents and first-time home buyers. Instead of encouraging slumlords, we need to encourage the buy-in to New Haven and Connecticut by its own residents. So we need to assist people in being the home buyer so we don't get slumlords. We have community people who own property in the community and have more of a stake in what happens in the city and the state.
Have you been watching the January 6th hearings? Any reactions to that and the state of the Republican Party nationally on this issue of whether the last election was stolen or not?
I actually haven't, Paul.
Me neither.
Okay. Do you hear any about it at the door at all?
No.
What's that?
You ever hear about this knocking on doors?
No. I mean, people are concerned with the economy of Connecticut.
How they're going to feed their families.
The cost of living. I mean, a lot of them are struggling. They were struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. And now that is so much harder. I mean, just me, for instance, traveling to work, the cost of my commute went from basically $30, not even a week, maybe over a 10-day period, to now it's about $60, $70. And the price is only going to go up. The gas tax, as you know, has been temporarily suspended. When that comes back in, it's going to add, we're going to see $6, $7. We could even possibly see $8.
Actually, I read this morning it's coming down. But
we could possibly see $6, $7, $8 per gallon of gas, which is unaffordable.
What I see in New Haven is I don't see a lot of jobs being created or factories going up or like that. I see self-storage spaces, and to me that's a waste. We need these small communities, which are the backbones of our society, to create jobs, have jobs. They will employ from within the neighborhoods, build up the neighborhood, more pride in the neighborhood, and it'll help our youth. Like, I do a lot of charity work in New Haven and surrounding towns since 1998. I raise food, toys, baby formula, clothes, jackets. I got it all documented. I even partner sometimes with the Raging Night MC firefighter organization in East Haven to do the same. I even went as far as raising funds for a gentleman who lost his son, his only son, to pay for the funeral. That couldn't afford it. He lost his job. And I'm part of a few civic organizations. I don't know if I can mention them on the radio.
Yeah, sure you can.
I'm a Shriner of the Shriners organization and the Masonic organization. I'm VFW, American Legion, Disabled Veterans Association. And I care about our vets. I'm a vet. I do a lot for people. Just today, I saw a gentleman broke down trying to push his truck. I stopped. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to help you." Why? Because I'm your neighbor and you need it. That's what we should be doing, helping each other, building each other up. Not just the select few, but all of us come together because we got to live here and it all affects us, what happens.
Right. And any last words from John Carlson? What's your pitch? I'm about to close the door, John. What do you
learn more at carlsonforsenate10.com and on Facebook, Carlson for Senate 10. A $5 contribution helps me qualify for the CEP funding, which helps bring democracy back to Connecticut and New Haven, West Haven.
And I'm ERICFOR newhaven.com, also on Facebook. And also $5 donation will help me with the CEP. I'm going through the CEP funding to keep it clean, keep it fair, and show them I'm here for you.
All right. Eric Mastriani, John Carlson running for state representative and state senator, respectively, in New Haven. We do have a slate of Republican candidates. We will have a choice in November, and I thank you for that choice. Thanks for coming in.
I'm just not for Republicans. I'm for all.
All right. And we're going to take a break here with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It'd Feel to Be Free from the CD A Plea for Peace. And we're going to come back on the rebound with former Lieutenant Steve Turquati from the New Haven Police Department, who's opening a new chapter of his life. And he's going to tell us all about that on the rebound. Sit tight for 5 minutes. This is Paul Bass inviting you to listen to Dateline New Haven on WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.